Welcome back to Out of the Park Baseball. I just completed my 10th season as manager slash GM of the Oakland A's. We have had back-to-back winning seasons. We have had back-to-back playoff appearances. We have had back-to-back division crowns. And yet we have not completed our ultimate goal of winning a World Series. So we must soldier on. Our score for the season was 590 out of 1,000. This is a very fine score, Foolish. Good job. Our budget for the season is going to be $166 million. He's spoiling me lately, that John Fisher. That is only the 29th highest budget. So there is some team out there that has it worse than us. Don't know who they are. Guessing Tampa? If I had to guess. Here's our review of season goals from John Fisher. He said he wanted a playoff appearance. We did it. He wanted more of an improvement at catcher. We improved in terms of just Jared Forrest having a better year, but he didn't quite manage to be top 6. Didn't acquire MVP winner. Attendance, I didn't increase attendance because I raised ticket prices. If I could probably just lower the ticket prices back to where they'd be and probably get to where I want to be on the attendance. He is not happy with our improvement in terms of fan interest, which is interesting because I feel like I've done actually a good job of that. I don't really know what the threshold is necessarily. But at the end of the day, he can't be upset at a playoff team, and as a result, my contract has been extended. I will remain in this post for at least 2 more years. I'm getting paid $1.3 million a year, so I'm rich, basically. Here's how we'll set up the player development lab this offseason. We'll work with Mike Drake on secondary pitch improvement. That is going to be the easiest of these goals. Hopefully that's the curveball, right? The curveball is the one that has the most room to grow. Liddell Jungo gap power is going to be a focus for us. I still think he has a future in this team despite a harsh rookie season. Jared Forrest and Juan Bustillos will work on generating bat speed. That is akin to power, and we got a pretty good outcome with that in terms of Chris Greer, where we got the outstanding, and that raised his potential, and it basically transformed him from a platoon option into a legitimate star. So this is a lofty goal. This is hard to get, but it would be huge if we could get it for either of these guys. Steve DeBono, we're going to work on plate discipline for him. And then Tyler Pitzer, we're going to work on endurance training because his injury proneness has become fragile. And you know, we'll see what the money is like. This is the last year of his deal. Like, he will be a free agent after the next season. I would not mind extending him necessarily, but I would feel better about doing that if we could improve, his endurance and his ability to stay healthy. Oh, by the way, I just realized that's not endurance training. We want strength and conditioning for Tyler Pitzer, so fixed that. Here's a look at the arbitration screen for us. You can see Tyler Pitzer and Daniel Cuvée are the guys who are really getting up there in the arb money, and that's because this is their final years of arbitration. So they will be free agents following the 2034 season. So that makes this a pretty important season, right? Because we could potentially lose Cuvée and Pitzer within the year. And, Pitzer was, probably our best starter again last year. And with the injury to Greer, Cuvée was probably our best bat, just our best hitter overall. So 2034 is going to be a big year for us. And a big reason why is because Cuvée and Pitzer, this is their last years before hitting free agency. As far as arbitration in general, we've kind of figured out the trick. You just offer, about 95% of the ARB estimate, and they'll take it. So all non-tender Wilson Castillo, all non-tender Vance Honeycutt as well. I mean, I think he's done a good job for us. I've liked him as the 4th or 5th outfielder, but I don't need to pay him $2.8 million. But yeah, that's how we're going to handle arbitration. It's probably time for us to look at some trades, and I have some ideas for this offseason. I think the number one focus is going to be to get an infielder, and I think preferably a third baseman. I think third base would be where I'd like it the most, but, Mark Cox didn't have a great year. Ethan Holiday didn't have a great year. I could see us moving on from both of them. I think if I'm going to move on from one of them, it would be Holiday, and I could see like a Dave Covert at second base, Liddell Jungo at shortstop, new guy at third base situation. Mark Cox is fine being a bench player, which I like. I would be happy to have him as a bench player. Maybe not as much an everyday starter, but so Cox, good chance he stays. Holiday, good chance he goes, and that's as far as the position players go. The big shocker potentially would be to trade Daniel Cuvée, which would be, shocking, right? Because he was such a key player for us last year, but this is the last year of his deal before free agency. I've already made my extensions as far as the homegrown guys, like the Chris Baker, Chris Greer, Jared Forrest, like those are the guys I picked. I didn't pick Cuvée, so if we move on from him a year early, it'll be because we really like what we got in return, but that is still a possibility. Dave Sochi is also a possibility, to be honest with you, because he is fragile. And we like Okoro, we like Baker. If there was another outfielder out there, or maybe we like Sergio Treviso, right? So if Treviso wants to be an everyday player, then we need to move an outfielder. And if we did that, it would be Sochi. Pitching wise, I'm comfortable with where we're at. I mean, obviously Skeens is going to leave, like, oh, let's go extend Paul Skeens. Nope, not going to happen. Some other team will pay him. We knew that. We knew he was a rental. The obvious guy to trade is Chris Pereira, getting up there in the ARB, and not even our highest leverage reliever, and didn't have a great year in 2033, but I do think he still has trade value because look at his history. I mean, that 2033 was an outlier. Like, he is a very good reliever, but I wouldn't mind trading him just to get the salary down, if anything. Jeff Grantland, meanwhile, he's going to get paid as well, but he's done miracles on me. I could see us trading one of Caminiti or Cisneros or Wagner, and of those three, I would probably lean on trading Caminiti, to be honest with you, just because he had a decent season again in 2033, and I could see us moving on from him because he's really struggled in the postseason with us. We've had him coming out of the bullpen, and one reason why I think he has struggled is actually my fault. It's user error. It's because he's a lefty, so I've been using him against lefties, but his best pitch by far is the changeup, which is usually better against opposite-handed hitters, so I think bullpen help as far as lefties would be a big thing because behind Grantland, we only have Jamie Bennett right now, and Caminiti, even if he's in the bullpen, isn't really a lefty specialist at all. In fact, he's probably just as good, if not better, against the righties because of his changeup. So we could move on from him, and if we moved on from him, we'd probably want to add another starter in return. But otherwise, I like where the rotation is at. I like, even with Skeens departing, I like Pitzer, I like Drake, I like Barker, Caminiti, Wagner, like Cisneros coming back. I think that's a pretty good mix of guys. Obviously, the big surprise trade would be Pitzer, right? Like, I'm still going to look at trades involving Pitzer just as I will involving Cuvée. If I see something I really, really, really like, I'm willing to pull the trigger, but I'm more inclined to keep Pitzer. I don't know if I'll be able to extend him or what, but I have a certain loyalty to him that I don't have to Cuvée, which is interesting because I drafted Cuvée. I didn't draft Pitzer. Let's go ahead and kick off this first trade of the offseason with the Kansas City Royals. We traded with the Kansas City Royals last offseason, actually, and we got a second baseman from them, Dave Covert. This time we're going to get another second baseman from them. That player is Chris McFarland. Chris McFarland, his hitting profile is similar to that of Dave Covert. It's similar to that of Mark Cox. I would say the biggest difference between Chris McFarland and Mark Cox is that Chris McFarland is really adept to play the second base position. That is really a good spot for him to be at. Mark Cox can play second, he can play third, but he can't play either of them particularly well. Chris McFarland is more specialized in the sense that he is a tried and true second baseman. We're going to be trading Cam Caminiti and Chris Pereira in this deal. Cam Caminiti has 2 years left before free agency. We've experienced some disappointments with him, but he's still also a pretty good pitcher. Chris Pereira, a disappointing 2033. I would have loved to have kept him around just because look at his history, right? He has a career 2.35 ERA, yet at the same time, getting up there in the ARB money, so this is going to clear out some cash. This is the player who is earning the most that we'll be trading this offseason, I believe. And then Jonathan Guinasso is a catcher who we drafted in the 9th round of the 2028 draft, but as you can see, not a big league hitter. We'll get depth, too, in this trade. We'll get a Johnny Nickelberry, which will complement Ward Sweetapple and Sincere Cabbage Stalk quite nicely in terms of just the names. I like that he just seems like he could be a decent bat, could complement Hairston, like they could be, a platoon at some point. Who knows? Kevin Cusimano's a catcher. Juan Carrera is an infielder. This is just minor league depth at this point. Danny Mills, a starting pitcher. But yeah, we're going to go through this trade, and Chris McFarland is going to become our second baseman. He hasn't even played a year in the big leagues yet, but as you can see in just 23 games from last year, he had a really good run. I mean, hopefully that's indicative of what is to come. So let's go ahead and make this trade with Chris McFarland being the main prize. And here is our second trade of the offseason, is with the New York Yankees, who are in win now mode. But then again, when are they not in win now mode? They're the New York Yankees after all. We're getting rid of some infielders in this one. Ethan Holiday just never quite worked out with him. His 2032 I thought was promising. His 2033 pretty much went back on all those promises. Dave Covert had a great 2033 for us, actually. 2 WAR in, just 100 games. Like, that's great. That's a great outcome for him. The fragility is concerning. He has an injury history. He missed some time for us. He was picking up a lot of day-to-day injuries. The injury proneness is something that concerns me. And getting McFarland, who himself is now a former Kansas City Royals second baseman, I'm okay with moving on from Covert. Danny Kennerly played for us a lot in 2031 in particular, but we kind of evolved the need past him. We just don't really need him anymore. I think he's out of options anyways. No one option year left. Okay. And then these two, Kim and Sierra, are just throw-ins. Here's what we're going to get. We're going to get one, and I guess it would be Chinchilla, right? But I'm tempted to say Chinchilla because, you know, those little fuzzy little guys. Did not have a good 2033, which was his rookie season. In fact, he was terrible. That said, ratings-wise, looks like he could be good. And he really just defensively fits the mold of what I want at third baseman, which is that big infield arm. So, you know, Mark Cox is still available as an option at second or third, but we are picking up these guys, presumably to be our second and third baseman. Jeremy Shia is going to replace Caminiti. He's a left-handed starting pitcher, and I thought a control pitcher would be a good thing to go for here just because we generally tend to try to build around good defense. And so, you know, if you put some balls in play, you don't strike out too many guys, I think we can work with that. He's quite young, too. He's only 23. You can see his service time right there. So he has been pitching in the big leagues, but he's young, so he could work on that control as well. Mitch Barnes is AAA reliever depth. And Ken Southard is, you know, major league reliever depth. Both of them lefties. We'll see if they contribute to the team this year or not. But, you know, they're young, they have options, and that's kind of what we're looking for in terms of the bullpen as we go on and mix and match. So I can say goodbye to Covert and Holiday and Kennerly, but I think we're getting some talent in return here from the New York Yankees. Also going to put in a waiver wire claim on an infielder. That infielder is going to be Mike Bencivengo of the Phillies. They're trying to get him off the 40-man roster. Had a decent year in AAA last year. It looks like a 900 OPS, 2.8 WAR in about 100 games. I like the ratings here. I like the versatility. I think we're going to move on from Albertus, so this could be effectively the new Albertus. So I think this is a guy worth keeping around. Let's put in a claim and get him on our 40-man, hopefully. It is award season. Here are your AL Gold Glove winners. We did technically win one because Gabriel Arias won one, although he only played 38 games for us compared to 95 for Minnesota. Sadly, he was not available for the playoffs, but he grabs one at third base. Kyle Tucker won one for the Yankees, although you can see the stats and ratings have come down. He's at the tail end of his career, but it was quite a good career in this save. And then Brady Harris grabs one because he just needed some more hardware, I guess. In the National League, we've got quite a few Dodgers. Miguel Vargas is still there. He grabs one at first base. Actually, he returns to there after spending some years with Washington and the Los Angeles Angels. He goes to the Dodgers, wins one. Ben Gorel, this guy looks great. 4-WAR season for him. League average hitter. Elijah Green won it in center last year. He wins it in left this year. This is the first year we've gotten one of these. Jeff Grantland is your American League Reliever of the Year. He has previously won this award in the National League. Now he wins it in the American League. Totally deserved. I'm glad he got it despite not putting out the greatest save totals because we use him in that stopper role. But seriously, 99 high leverage innings of a 2 ERA. He was brilliant. Jim Long, the closer for the White Sox, and Emmanuel Clase. Now at the Yankees getting votes as well. Bob Rigel, the closer for the Miami Marlins, wins the award this year with a 1.16 ERA. Zach Root, a reliever on the Braves, also got close, as well as Devin Boyland of the Cubs. We didn't have any Silver Slugger winners. I do want to point out Chester Gurton of the Angels. He grabs a Silver Slugger, and just a monster year for him. 51 home runs, OPS over 1,000, and this guy's ratings are absolutely unbelievable. What a great hitter that the Angels have. A great young hitter in that as well. Brady Abel has become a star for the White Sox. You can see he just continues to put up great power numbers at the third base position, only 26 years of age. Rangers grab a couple as well with Wyatt Langford and Corbin Carroll in those corner outfield spots. Moving on to the National League, we can see that Ethan Salas, Frank Arellano of the Diamondbacks, that third baseman for them, and Jordan Walker both grab not only Silver Sluggers, but also Gold Glove awards, so hardware for those guys. The AL Rookie of the Year is Zach Pacino. He was drafted in the 2032 draft and just, didn't need any time in the minors. 2033 made his pro debut, and wow, just what a monster player for the Toronto Blue Jays. A 373 average. AL Rookie class was stacked this year, but I would have liked to see Mike Drake's name at least come up. Juan Godina, who is a catcher for the Mets, wins the Rookie of the Year in the National League with TJ Norris as the runner-up. And look at this guy. This guy's going to be really good. I can't believe I drafted Chris Rangel ahead of this guy. That one's going to hurt. That was a bad decision. Luis Hurtado, the manager of the Yankees, is your AL Manager of the Year. In the National League, it is Richard Herkel, and these two were the World Series matchup with the Colorado Rockies coming out on top. Yu Min Lin is the American League Cy Young winner. I believe he becomes just one of a handful of players to win a Cy Young in both the National and American Leagues. Good for him. Jeff Grantland, one of our guys, finishes 5th. And then in the National League, unanimously, it is Ken Pepin. We've talked about this guy, an absolute monster. These are absolutely monstrous numbers pitching in Coors Field. An ERA crown in Coors Field. That is just an unbelievable thing to even think about. Good for him, unanimous. And finally, your AL MVP is the aforementioned Chester Girton. He wins it at the young age of 22. Looks like Cuvée got down ballot votes. I don't know what this is, like 12th place or something like that. In the National League, it is Mike Neely of those just so young Miami Marlins. That's so much good young talent. Mike Neely grabs himself a National League MVP with Jake Kingston, Jordan Walker, James Wood, and Ken Pepin also receiving first place votes. We are at the dawn of salary arbitration hearings and then free agency. We don't have any salary arbitration hearings to worry about. We're going to non-tender Wilson Castillo, Alexander Albertus, and Vance Honeycutt. Albertus and Honeycutt in particular served us well in terms of being role players, but it's time to move on. We don't necessarily need to pay those role players $1.7 and $2.8 million respectively. We also have pending free agents without compensation. These are, trade deadline guys. We got Alzolay at the deadline. We got Waldrep at the deadline. We got Arias at the deadline. Of course, we got Paul Skeens at the deadline. We're not extending those guys. Those guys will move on. This year's Hall of Fame ballot is headlined by newcomer Jose Altuve. Of course, I will be voting for Sean Doolittle. It's time to submit my ballot. Free agents are beginning to hit the market. One of those is Naotake Atsuka, who is a right-handed pitcher out of Japan, only 25 years old. My scout likes him a lot, but he has low scouting accuracy on him, and then OSA thinks he's more of a work in progress. In terms of major leaguers becoming free agents, the class is headlined by Marcelo Meyer. You can see the career Marcelo Meyer has had up to now. Pretty darn good. That looks like a very good player for whoever signs him, though it's probably not going to be us. Evan Carter would be a nice consolation in terms of just the position players in this class. 47 WAR in his career at the major league level, becoming a free agent at 31. Pretty unbelievable. He will be leaving Texas, right? He was with Texas the whole time. Paul Skeens is a free agent, and Noble Meyer are free agents. Those are the two best pitchers, I think. The Rule 5 draft has come and passed. We did not make a selection, but we were selected from. The first pick of the draft was Jeff Boudreau, an outfielder who we signed to a minor league contract the previous offseason, had a really good year for us in AAA. I wish him the best with the Cleveland Guardians. And then we also had another player selected from us. The Pittsburgh Pirates in the third round selected Chris Drisdom, who is someone who I actually just signed to a minor league deal a few weeks ago out of Indy Ball. He will be a major leaguer for the Pirates, or at least he'll have a chance in spring training. January 1st, 2034, it's time to make our third trade of the offseason, and I think it'll be the last trade we make until spring training is over. I'm going to actually bank that fourth trade. You recall that we play with rules, 4 trades in the offseason, 3 trades, trade deadline. I'm going to bank that fourth trade until after spring training. That way, if there's any sort of injury, I can use it to address said injury. We're going to move on from Josh Van Noy. I liked him as just an outlier shortstop defender, but he can't really hit, and what I've come to learn is one thing that's different about this game is they've rebalanced the defense a little bit so that there's not that much of a difference between a really good defensive shortstop and like an all-time great defensive shortstop, if that makes sense. The gap isn't as wide as it normally would be, and thus the value of someone like Josh Van Noy is diminished to some degree. So we're going to move on from him. Jesus Tirado and Gilberto Villalobos are just, minor league depth at best. This is a trade with the Texas Rangers, so we're trading within the division. We're going to receive Franco Aleman. Franco Aleman is now a 33-year-old pitcher. I believe he's in the Cleveland organization in real life, if I got that right. A reliever. This is adding to our relief depth for sure. We're also going to have Texas cover 55% of this contract. It's the last year of his deal. He is on the trade block, so they basically want to get rid of him. Jaden Stroman is going to be in this trade. We drafted him. We drafted him in the second round of 2025. So, wow, that's a long time ago in universe. That's like 9 years ago. Just, shortstop depth, right? Minor league depth. Simple as that. And then we'll also receive Albert Elizondo, who is a 19-year-old outfielder for them, drafted in the 2032 draft, 8th round. But look at these potential ratings here. Looks like he could be pretty good, had a decent year in rookie ball. So, we'll get a reliever, we'll get a prospect, we'll get simple minor league depth. I'm cool with it. I like this trade. Let's complete it. January 15th means it's time for international free agent signing to begin. Here are the 10 international free agents we've invited to train with us so we can get a good look at them and scout them. At the top, we have Luis Alicia, a second baseman, Juan Salcedo, a shortstop, and Jesus Valenzuela, a starting pitcher. These are the sort of the top of the line guys in the class. I'm not totally in love with any of them, to be honest with you. Like last year, we put all of our eggs into one basket. This year, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. I'm actually quite interested in sort of the next tier of player. We have right here, for starters, Quinton Hernfield, who's an Australian outfielder. His demand is only $190K, although the league interest is high, so that'll probably drive it up. But there's a big discrepancy here between the OSA and my scout, who's gotten a pretty good look at him. So that might be just a better value in general. Albert Alvarado, similar situation. And Demario Fraga, similar situation. So I think these guys, Hernfield in particular, are actually going to be more of the priority heading into this phase. We have managed to add one of those outfielders. That outfielder is Albert Alvarado. So that is one down. He signed for $480,000, so that is quite cheap for a player of this potential. Hernfeld, the switch-hitting Australian outfielder, has signed with us as well. That one was $620,000. We have a third signing from this class. That is Demario Fraga, an outfielder. This one was expensive. This one cost $2.6 million, but I still think it could very well be worth it. And then we've added another player to our class. That is a relief prospect by the name of David Ramirez. He signed for $1.4 million. February 16th, I would say our international free agent signing period is over, and now it's time for spring training to begin. We have invited everyone on our 40-man roster to participate in spring training, and we'll use that to narrow down to our final 26-man roster. We also have one trade left. We have one trade left in the bank. That way, if we suffer some sort of injury, we can use that trade to hopefully fill in the gap. I am going to make a signing at the onset of spring training as well, and that's going to be with Mr. Jace Young. Jace Young, there's really no demand for him, but I think there could be a place for him in this team. I'm going to offer him a contract. All he wants is one of those deals that turns into a big league deal if he joins the big league club within 30 days. So I'm okay with that. That is very little commitment on our part. And yeah, hopefully we can get him to sign, and maybe we'll find space for him to come back into this team. A now 33-year-old Sal Frelick is someone who I could see having potential for us as a bench outfielder as well, can play all three outfield positions quite well, can potentially get on base because he's a good contact hitter. I like that he bats lefty as well. We will offer him a similar contract to the one we offered to Jace Young. We have our results back from the player development lab. We ultimately went 2 for 6. No improvement on Mike Drake as he tried to improve his sinker, even though I think I want him to improve his curveball. Juan Bustillos attempts to improve his power. No effect there. Tyler Pitzer strength and conditioning. Nothing there. Sergio Treviso actually ended up putting in the player development lab, and no attempt to improve his power worked. So where we were successful, Liddell Hungo gap power, that was successful. We brought that up to a 50. That fulfilled its potential. It is now a 50. And then Steve DeBona gets an outstanding result for plate discipline. That's the I. So that means the potential has gone up as well. The potential is now a 60 on the 20 to 80 scale. Previously, it was a 55. And the overall has come up because previously it was a 45, and now it is a 50. So good result there. That is the best result of the lab. Alrighty, we have made it through spring training unscathed. The only injury is that Dave Sochi picked up a lengthy day-to-day injury, a sore elbow, as he tends to do, but that's actually all right. No major injuries heading into opening day. It's time to narrow down the roster and do another trade. I really want to fit Jace Young into this team, but there's really no way to do it other than to trade Mark Cox. So we're going to trade Mark Cox. He was replacement level last year, and he's in his RBers this year, but I will miss him. I will have good Mark Cox memories. I wish we could have kept him around. His expectation is the starting lineup as well, and I don't think I'm able to give that to him at this point. Chris Rangel's going to go. I will not miss him whatsoever. What a complete bust. The second overall pick for us just back in 2031 turned into nothing, has not developed one bit. Not good. Chris Rangel, bad pick on my part. I'm surprised that didn't work out. Chad Blanco, 2030 second rounder for us. Probably the best potential future value out of any of these guys leaving this deal. I'm sad to see him go. I think he's decent. Christian Doty and Julio Morales are minor league depth. And the guy we're going to trade for is Danny Baudanza. We needed that lefty reliever still. We're still working on that. We have guys in the minors who can do that, but Danny Baudanza, I think, is probably better than all of them. This is a guy who's going to start on the big league roster for us. And it looks like already a very good left-handed reliever with some potential to grow as well. young, only 24 years old, less than a year of service time in the majors. He is from Toronto, and we're going to go ahead and make this deal. So with that deal in mind, here's how we're going to line it up for 2034 versus righties. We're going to have Dave Sochi lead off. He'll move down to 5th versus the lefties. We'll have Chris Baker, we'll have Chris Greer, we'll have Daniel Cuvée batting cleanup, followed by Okoro. Versus the right-handed pitching, you're going to see Jace Young and Liddell Hungo get starts in the infield at third base and shortstop, respectively. Moving on to the lineup versus left-handed pitching, that'll be Juan Chinchilla and Mike Bensavengo, who we picked up off of waivers. So some platooning going on there in the infield, but the constant will be Jared Forrest batting in the 9th spot and hopefully getting on base an above-average clip to set the table for the top of the order once again. Pitching-wise, it'll look like this. The rotation will be Pitzer, Drake, Cisneros back from injury this year, Jeremy Shia acquired from the Yankees, and Dan Wagner acquired from the Pirates at the previous trade deadline. That is our 5. Pete Barker will be the long relief man / SP6, and then in the bullpen you'll have Gatwood, Bennett, Salcedo, and the newly acquired Baudanza in middle relief with Robertson, Aliman, and of course Jeff Grantland, the ultimate stopper / closer. Overall, I liked this offseason for us. I think we made some nice incremental improvements to the team, and we also still have room in the budget to add at the trade deadline, just as we did last season. This is an important year for us coming up. We've got Cuvée and Pitzer reaching free agency at the end of this year, so this may be, one of the best years we get in our competitive window, in our competitive cycle. I'm looking forward to making the best out of it in the next episode.